So my writing area is a little bit of a mess, and the drawers are way worse. So I kind of want to clean up before I get back into what I'm working on today. So let's do it together and we'll just chat a little bit about this romance series that I'm working on. Welcome back to the channel. My name is CF Claire, and I'm currently working on the first book in an interconnected standalone romance series. And the comp series is Kresley Cole's Immortals After Dark. Project Goblin is the first book. So let's talk a little bit more about what I actually decided on for that universe. One of the things that makes the series sort of unique is that I really wanted to play with two very different galaxies that are connected by this rift in space between them. But through the rift between them, if it's open, you can sort of quantum leap. I don't know. I actually don't read a lot of sci-fi, but this is a very fantasy flavored sci-fi romance series because I want them to be in space. Very D&D, big ships, but that are not spaceships. They're literally sailing ships that are space worthy. So I just think that's really fun. And on one side of the rift, you've got this galaxy that's much more like our own, where there's very large planets, and they're sort of the home worlds of some of the more major fantasy races. Like there's a fae homeworld, there's a demon homeworld, and each homeworld has its own way that magic works on it, in the way that each planet has its own different gravity and weather and whatever. So you've got all these different ways that magic works. And on the other side of the rift, it's much more Wild West, lots of small planets, small moons, a completely different societal structure and way of life and everything. It's much more space seafaring. Think like One Piece with the 7 pirate warlords or whatever. I actually don't watch One Piece. My husband does. So forgive me if that's not correct. But there are these different warlords who control sectors within the space. I really like the idea of keeping the world so big. Then in each little mini series, I can focus on a certain group and be like, I'd like to spend more time in the Wild West section. What do I want this group to be doing over there? Or I really want to just buckle down and have a group that is exploring the witch homeworld. And so have a bunch of academia books, because the witch homeworld is going to be very progressive, capitalistic, magic, academia, society, sort of like the Japan of this magical universe. It's ahead of its time, it's doing this crazy 2030, 2050 stuff, but in the magical equivalent section. There's so many fun things to do in this world. So anyways, that's a brief snippet. I've been watching a lot of Sarah Paine lectures. I've watched all of them at this point, and I'm rewatching them. She's a Naval War College professor, and she has these absolutely fascinating talks on history. I'll link them too, but it's just really interesting, really exciting, thinking about, okay, how would I take some real world stuff and how can we flavor that as part of the history and dynamic between some of these races? And it's so fun. I'm not cleaning at all. I need to clean. I've been having a lot of fun listening to those lectures and being like, okay, what is the history of this dragon shifter homeworld? Who's their prime enemy historically? The main male hero is a dragon, and there's all these ways that you can get stuck on the wrong side, the Wild West side of the rift. And I kind of have this idea that there's very few races that actually originated on that Wild West side. And instead, over tons and tons of generations, all the people who accidentally ended up on this Wild West side have just had families from there. There's a lot more people and societies and cultures, but very few races actually originated there. It's all just accidentally being sent there. Or possibly there's some amount of an Australia situation of one society or fantasy race being like, let's send all our convicts or whatever to this wrong side of the rift, the bad side. I did want to give a little bit of a rundown about this first mini series that I want to work on within the larger series. It's going to follow 5 people, the basis of this adventuring crew. If you come from a D&D background like me, they're essentially an adventuring party, but they're not looking for adventures. One of them is a witch, and she comes from this very political background. Like, her family is really powerful in the political sphere on the Wild West side of the rift. I think her dad is one of those warlords of a certain sector within the Wild West side. So she has an unusual amount of financial backing for a researcher, which is what she is. So she's the one who sort of glues them all together as a group because they're all paid to do certain things in the party. One of the members is the captain of the ship. One of them is a navigator. One of them is sort of a muscle. And the other one is her best friend. I don't know if she's actually paid to be doing this, but like, she's definitely there because they're best friends. So I'm really excited about that. But the basis of this miniseries is that the first book is the captain of this research cruise. It's her ship. And because of the way that the story works and what she needs to do, they need to split up. And so it's a disbanding of this research adventurer party. And so they all split off in their own books and have their own next thing they need to do now that they're not together. And that's going to take them to different parts of the Wild West section. And there's also going to be some reason that the rift opens, and a few of them have to go through and return to where they came from and face their past. And then because of the events that happen within each of their books, I have a general idea of what I want each of their books to be, very general. But because of the things that happen within each of their books, we meet a bunch of other characters, and there are some mysteries brought up. So then in the next mini-series within this larger series, we get to delve more into who those characters are and what the answer to those mysteries are. So there's so many possibilities. Oh, you can't even see. I'm working on the drawers. I've just been shoving everything into here, and it's obviously not a good system. I just started playing Pokemon again with my husband. The only actual game that I play, video game, is Pokemon, and I think you could argue that it's not actually a video game. I don't know. It's the only one I play, and I lose interest quite quickly. But I just can't care about anything except training Pokemon. My husband really likes video games, and he'll tell me the storyline for all of these video games, and I'll be like, that's a really good story. But there's no way I would play that. Oh yeah, this is my photo inspiration for the main character of the first book and the love interest of the first book. So she's a high fae, he's a dragon. Oh, that's right. I should put these back up. I had to take them off my wall so I could have my plotting stuff on the wall, but this is sort of some vibes of the first book. This is the ship that they travel on through space. Are you kidding me? That's so rad. And there's this tournament that happens in the first part of the book, and this is sort of the marketplace. It's called Project Goblin for a couple of reasons, but the reason that it's still called Project Goblin is because the book starts with the researcher adventurer crew's arrival to this Goblin homeworld. They're one of the few races that has a homeworld on this Wild West side of the rift. So it starts with their arrival on the Goblin homeworld, where the dragon shifter already is for his own reasons. And there's a bunch of stuff that happens, including this mini tournament arc. Listen, as someone who has watched and thoroughly enjoyed Yusuke, what's it called? Yu Yu Hakusho. It is not as drawn out as that, I promise you. There's only a couple scenes where you actually see them in the tournament. And this is some photo inspiration. So this really annoys me about Pinterest. Ever since all of this AI stuff really totally blew up, Pinterest does have that little thing on pictures that's like, hey, this was made with AI, by the way. But as far as I know, September 17th, 2025 today, they don't have a way to just, in the search parameters, toggle don't show me AI pictures. I don't want to see them. And that's so annoying because obviously if I'm looking up inspiration for cute, marsh swamp pictures for goblin houses, if I see a picture I really like, I want to use it in my inspiration wall. But I truly don't want to see that stuff if it's made by AI. So, oh, I've tried a couple other websites like DeviantArt, but I just hate the way that's laid out. I can't stand it to just navigate. So, it's so annoying because a bunch of the pictures that I just showed you were made by AI. And honestly, I would have preferred to not ever see them. Do you know what I mean? What I'm looking for probably has been done by actual human artists. If I could have just blocked out all the AI pictures, then you can find the real artist pictures. But since you can't, you're inundated by 100 of the first things are clearly AI, and you're just like, oh my god, if I have to scroll forever to find something that's not AI, I just don't have this sort of time. My stance on AI, by the way, is it's dumb. I don't know anything about how it can be used to help save lives and stuff. Probably there is, a bunch of stuff that AI is helping save lives doing, but we've all seen iRobot, let alone just like the ethicalness of it and the global warming impact. Oh my god. Anyways, that's one drawer emptied. I think I don't need these anymore. This story went through so many different iterations of what the storyline was going to be. I think has been like 6 different preliminary ideas before I settled on this one, which I really love. That was such a frustrating place to be in, though, where it's just like, oh my god, it could be any of these, and I don't know which one I really connect with. I don't connect with any of them that much, but it could be any of them. And then it was a different one. I need to hang this up again. This is it's a 2024 gardening calendar, but it just counts down the number of weeks before first frost, last frost. I've been tracking for a couple years when certain flowers started blooming and a couple other gardening stuff. And I didn't do any of it this year. I really wish I had been taking more notes. That's too bad. This was not a very focused gardening year, but that's okay. I did make the greenhouse, and that was the main goal. The greenhouse soil is really bad, so that's too bad. But the greenhouse is made, and I'll show you later in the day. We'll go out there and you'll see the tomatoes, which are doing very well, even though they got blight. Oh, so early in the season. Oh my god. I'm in Massachusetts, by the way. And I actually did do some chaos garden sowing of kale seeds a couple weeks ago, which thank god I did. And I just transplanted those into the greenhouse because I want to have a bunch of kale over the winter. So hopefully that all pans out. These are some other cute pictures. In the last video on this, I was talking about how it's a marshy situation that they're going in. They're in a little boat like that, going in a little place like this, all these lily pads, and it's gonna be really cute. There's gonna be like glow-in-the-dark mushrooms, I think. And that's a very short part of the book, by the way. It's just what I'm working on right now. As far as actual work for what I'm trying to accomplish today, when I finish cleaning this, I think I just fleshed out enough this chapter 34, which is the last chapter that I was going to flesh out to complete the first half of the book. And I'm in the middle of revising a very detailed outline. So it's my second draft of a very detailed outline with here's the scene, here's the sequel, blah, 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 blah. So it actually takes a lot of work, but I'm really enjoying doing that because I hate the decision-making fatigue of first drafts. I don't like discovering my story, but the decision fatigue is the huge thing because doing a first draft where you're discovering stuff and then you're making decisions as you go. My entire writing life before this year, I was doing that and then just make decisions in the moment that I actually don't like. And then the story goes from this way to the wrong way. And I'm like, oh no, I guess I have to like get rid of everything. I really like doing the decision stuff beforehand. So with that being said, I'm loving the way this second draft of the outline is turning out. And I'm getting so excited to write these scenes. But I'm definitely going to when I finish going through, I'm definitely going to take a couple weeks break and start brainstorming and deciding on what I want to do for the second book in the series, and then come back and I want to go through my outline for a third time, because there's a couple of large world building questions that I don't know the answer to right now. And I think what I need to do is just sit with this world for longer. So, sort of the longer it takes before reaching those decisions, I think is going to help me come to what I actually want about it. So, for instance, right now in chapter 34, there's a situation going on that is going to involve me needing to know what a certain dragon culture initiation ceremony is. And right now I don't. And I've started thinking about what I want the dragon culture to be like, broad scale historical, near historical things that have happened in the dragon planet, because that's very relevant to the main character and his arc and his past and history and what is going to happen at the end of the book. So I've started thinking about that stuff, but I definitely need longer to work through why I want to make certain choices and whatever. So yeah, so I left it pretty open-ended. I was like, they're trying to do this certain initiation ceremony and XYZ happens, but I don't know what that initiation ceremony is. So yeah, a third time through will help clarify some of these world building questions. And I'm really enjoying this process. But there is that ever-present annoyance of spending so long doing a project and not having any drafts. I think this is funny. Oh, let's move it up so you can see. So this is all the chapters that I've done the second draft outline of. And oh, I didn't even tell you guys, but this was my middle grade fantasy novel Project Conjurer. And I finished writing the first draft of that a couple weeks ago. So I'm really happy about that. But all these blue things, silly me, I was like, I think I'm really close to understanding this Project Goblin story, my romance. And so I think I could also figure out the rest of my fantasy romance novel, which I'd like to traditionally publish if possible. And like I didn't do anything on that. Believe me, this took so much longer than I thought, which is fine because it's all fun and there's no actual deadline. But yeah, I didn't do any of that. I feel like it's funny how much you can study the writing craft and still in the moment be like, what's the point of a scene? And it's like, oh, okay, that's right. Oh yeah, and I just wanted to distinguish because I know I'm like talking about like planets in this fantasy world. And it really is like fantasy. Like it's not sci-fi. There's no scientific technology or something. Like it is magic based. It's just happening in space on planets, and there's planetary travel. And also it's not an alien romance. There are no aliens. It's all fantasy races who are on these planets. I haven't read much alien romance, but I do really like the exception of the like very little I've read. Zoe Draven's alien romance books. Those are pretty fun. Today, what I'm supposed to be working on though is, I think I did finish this, so let's actually just like move it down. I need to look at what I have for my fifth sequence, which is that like first half of the third quarter. And I need to see if I still like what I have for that and correct what's there to what I've done so far as I've changed things. So looking forward to that. And I'm not really looking forward to that because the third quarter is just generally absolute worst. And the sixth sequence, which is that second half of the third quarter, is going to be the actual absolute worst because I don't have hardly anything written down for it in the first draft of this outline because I was like, I don't know if what I have for the fifth sequence is really what I want to be doing. So I don't know what that means for the sixth sequence. I just know that at the end of it, this happens in the last 2 chapters of it. So I have a pretty good framework to work off of because there's about 8 chapters for each sequence, and they're supposed to be about 1,200 to 1,400 words per chapter because I don't want the word count to be more than 90,000 words. I'm alternating point of view chapters, and just the progression of emotional arc and situations, we just need to have a lot happening, a lot of back and forth. So it just doesn't lend itself to long chapters. But so I know that in the 5th sequence and the 6th sequence, I've got about 8 chapters worth of stuff that needs to happen to get to the next plot and emotional shift. But what happens within those, that's for me to figure out today and all of next week. Next week is the last week of quarter 3, and I've sort of adjusted my goals because when I first started the 3rd quarter, I was like, I think I can do all of the outlining, and I do a lot of outlining for Project Goblin and also write the whole first draft. It's just like, no, you can't do that. So instead, it's like, okay, I think I have enough time to actually just do the 2nd draft of revisions of the outline up to the end of the 5th sequence. So then I'll be starting the 4th quarter doing the 2nd draft for the 6th, 7th, and 8th sequences. So, but we'll talk more about that in the next quarter review video, which is, I guess, gonna happen pretty soon. On one hand, this is such a procrastination thing I'm doing because I clearly don't want to sit down and use my brain to figure out what I'm gonna do for the 5th sequence, which is a little bit silly because I think it's not going to be that bad. I think I'm going to be able to keep a lot of this stuff and just revamp it a little bit, but I also really just don't want to. But I also wanted to do a video where I talked a little bit more about this series, because in the last couple of videos, well, not the last video, but prior to this, I've had very little idea of any specifics of it. And now I'm just so excited. Oh, yeah. Okay. These, look at my flashcards. Wow. I'm such a writing tools person. I just need this stuff. So what, okay. Actually, though, let's just chat briefly about this because this is very intense. This was August. This was what I was doing in August mostly, as I was like, why is it so hard to find the story I want to tell with this main character when I like these certain things? But none of what I'm coming up with feels right. What is going on? How do I get out of going in circles? And so I was like, I just need to strip away all of the fancy flavor and dressing up of what I'm trying to do. What is the literal dynamic happening here? What is the literal choice happening here? Because what is it that I want to write? What's the sequence of nuts and bolts that I'm actually interested in pursuing? And I'll give you an example. So I've read very extensively romance novels since I was 16, right? So I've read a lot of romance novels. I've studied a lot of romance structure and story structure and whatever. So this is how I'm coming to these things. So I have a section for what are some of the things that are very typical for how romance novels specifically, but I guess it could be in general, but specifically romance. What's the status quo generally? What are all the options? The main character might be happy, but unsatisfied or unfulfilled in some way. Or they might be happy, but inconvenienced or temporarily stressed. They might be unhappy, but trying to ignore it or deny it. They might be unhappy, but trying to fix it. They might be unhappy and unable or unwilling to do anything about it. They might be in danger or not in control of themselves and unable or disinclined to change that. Or they might be in danger and not in control of themselves and focused on changing that. So it's just what is literally every possibility I can think of that is very typical to find at the beginning of a story for how a protagonist is. And I was like, which of these do I want? What do I care about? What is going on with this character? On the one hand, I don't care that I have to do things like this, but on the other hand, it's why do I have to do things like this? Why can't I just be I want to do this? Why does it feel like wading through molasses? But when I see it like this, I'm like, well, the adhesion thrust that I want to use is that he's the only one who can help her. I don't want to use an adhesion thrust they agree to a deal where they both get what they want, or one of them's kidnapped or imprisoned or bound to the other, or they're morally obligated to help the other, or whatever other adhesion thrust option there is. It's just like, no, I just want him to be the only one who can help her, because her whole thing is she would never, ever ask for help, especially from him, unless she absolutely had to. It's like, oh, that's the one we want. So yeah, silly as it is, that's how I found the story that I wanted to tell with these characters. I think at this point I am successfully procrastinating and also successfully getting hungry. So I'm gonna get some food and wrap this up quickly. I need to use my whiteboard to do this stuff. And apparently we have 3 bottles of hydrogen peroxide and no bottles of isopropyl alcohol, which everyone in the DIY space is like, use a mixture of isopropyl alcohol and water to clean your whiteboards. But this one guy was like, you can use WD-40, which we have. So hydrogen peroxide and water did not work. I've never used so much WD-40 in my life. I feel like it's not going to work. Okay, it's been like a minute. Let's figure it out. Maybe you have to leave it for more than a minute. I'll try leaving it for like 10 minutes next time. But we just have to move on. Okay, we've got the 8 chapters that are probably going to be in this sequence. We have the point of view that's probably going to be there. We know this is what happened at the midpoint. And we know that it's going to end with the climax of this sequence, which is going to be like a reminder of the stakes, the second reminder of the stakes. So we've got a rough framework. Bunch of stuff we should clean up in the yard. And this is the kale we transplanted a couple days ago. And the tomatoes. So they're doing pretty well for this being really bad soil, honestly. I just transplanted these kales, so hopefully they'll do well. I tossed some lettuce seeds and cilantro seeds in there, so you can see just really willy-nilly, and they're starting to come up. So that's nice. I did my initial little summary of each chapter. It's like 4:30 now. I actually didn't work very much today, unfortunately. Some days you can really zone in, and other days it's so hard to be like, hello, brain, be creative. I was hoping to get to the stage where I take the little summary of each chapter and actually break that down, because right now it's like a situation, but it's not a scene where someone wants something. Just be like, okay, here's the situation I think happens in the chapter, but here's the person who wants something and they get it or they don't. And here's the twist. There's whatever emotional reaction needs to happen, you know, and like blah, blah, blah. I was hoping I would do that today. That's okay. I'll do that tomorrow. My husband just took the kids to karate, and I'm going to sit outside and relax because I'm so sleepy. But I'm going to take a look at this. Sun sign, moon sign. It just came in the mail today. I'm so excited. I have it on ebook. And so it's good on ebook, but it's so annoying to be like, I just want to flip through. You can't do that easily with ebooks. So I am going to look through these. I already have some pretty preliminary ideas of the astrological signs of the other people in this research adventuring party and the love interest they're going to be with. So I'm going to look into more of the character that I want to do, like what their moon sign is going to be, because I love doing that. That's so fun. I love how this curtain rod, it looks insane because it's all bent. All it takes is for one child to climb on the back of a chair and try to move the curtain because they don't move it to the side, they pull down. So this just like happens with all of our curtains. It's a great look. But thank you for hanging out. Thanks for listening and hearing what I'm working on. And definitely tell me what you're working on. Are you starting a project in the middle of a project, at the end of a project? I hope your writing's going well. I hope life's going well, and I'll see you in the next one.